Most companies believe licensing is controlled at renewal. That sounds responsible. It isn't. Renewals no longer control cost. Activation does. Your Microsoft renewal is not rising because pricing changed. It's rising because activation outran oversight. And that's a licensing drift. I'm Jayson Hahn, and I've been the one approving these types of decisions, and the one explaining them when the pressure shows up. Licensing used to be a reset. 3-year cycle, true up, correction. Now it compounds. Copilot attaches, security expands, Azure workloads grow, AI consumption accumulates. None of it requires capital review. None of it pauses for margin alignment. Cost scales with activation velocity. Contracts do not govern behavior. People do. And here's where leaders get this wrong. They focus on price. Price is not the driver. Velocity is. The problem is not the list price. The problem is activation without revenue linkage. Departments enable tools, pilots become defaults, usage becomes baseline. Each decision looks operational. Cumulatively, cost structure shifts. No one approves the aggregate exposure. You're not overcharged. You allowed cost to scale without economic guardrails. That is governance failure. In a recent review, renewal increased 22% for this one company. Revenue grew 5%. No one could explain that delta without describing features. And that's not an explanation. That's just exposure. Software used to behave like a fixed operating expense, right? Now it behaves like a variable cost without revenue linkage. And variable cost without revenue linkage compresses operating leverage. When revenue slows down, consumption does not. When growth flattens, activation continues. If activation grows faster than revenue, margin deteriorates automatically. And not because the vendor pushed harder, because financial oversight lagged behavior. Renewal becomes the audit moment. The exposure already existed. Before approving another activation, ask this. What revenue mechanisms offset it? If none, you're funding margin compression. When renewal outpaces revenue, finance pushes back. Not over price, but over control. If you attempt reduction, you find dependency, operational dependency. Workflows now rely on activation decisions, never renewed at a capital level. That is when the credibility shifts. Not because of cost, because cost was not governed. The vendor didn't trap you. The commercial model monetizes behavior. If behavior is not governed, cost compounds. Licensing no longer resets. It accelerates. Activation without oversight becomes structural margin compression. That's not a procurement failure. It's an economic ownership failure. So you should ask these 3 questions immediately. First, what metric moves if we approve expanded activation? 2, what do we stop funding if renewal growth exceeds revenue? And third, who owns the variance if consumption outpaces forecast? If those answers are unclear, activation is outrunning governance. Behavior must be governed at activation. Thresholds must exist before expansion. Financial ownership must be named before deployment. Optimization must precede commitment. If behavior is disciplined, compounding stabilizes. If behavior is loose, compounding accelerates. Licensing is no longer a contract event. It's a cost infrastructure. And infrastructure without ownership erodes margin quietly. You can renegotiate terms, you can slow renewal growth, but if your cloud agreement is consumption-based without margin guardrails, compression migrates. You fixed the license, you did not fix the consumption model. And that model is already scaling.